Imagine waking up to headlines declaring that America's food supply, factories, and even household water bills could depend on Canada's rivers. Sounds dramatic, right? But that's exactly where we find ourselves today. What used to be an invisible backbone of life, fresh water, has suddenly become one of the most explosive political issues between the United States and Canada. For decades, water was taken for granted, shared quietly through treaties, dams, and pipelines. But now it's front-page news, sparking fears, outrage, and even talk of international confrontation. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. We dive deep into the stories shaping our world, from geopolitics to resources, in a way that's easy to follow and worth your time. If you find this topic as important as I do, please hit the like button and share this video so more people can join the conversation. The spark for this crisis came from a bold and some say reckless demand by former President Donald Trump. In one of his trademark rallies, he referred to Canada's rivers as giant faucets and insisted that Ottawa must send water south to rescue drought-stricken states like California, Arizona, and Nevada. His focus landed on the Columbia River, a 2,000-kilometer waterway that has long symbolized cooperation between the two countries. But this time, cooperation took a sharp turn toward confrontation. Trump's move wasn't just bluster. His administration froze updates to the Columbia River Treaty, a pact dating back to 1961 that has managed flood control, hydropower, and cross-border planning for decades. By halting negotiations, Washington made clear that water was no longer a matter of quiet diplomacy. It was leverage, a bargaining chip, a resource America could no longer afford to wait for. Canada's response? Defiance. Prime Minister Mark Carney, a man better known for his years in banking than for populist fire, suddenly became the face of water sovereignty. Standing firm, he declared that Canada's water is not for sale, warning Washington that Ottawa would block any attempt to treat rivers as American lifelines. Almost overnight, the relationship between the two neighbors changed. Environmental groups, Indigenous nations, and ordinary Canadians rallied behind Carney. 85 organizations publicly demanded new laws to guarantee water protection. For many Canadians, the idea of sending rivers south feels like selling off part of their identity, their sovereignty, their very future. But if Canada was applauded at home, the ripple effects south of the border were immediate and painful. Let's talk about agriculture first, because food is something we all connect with. California, already facing the worst drought in modern history, was banking on Canadian water to keep crops alive. The Central Valley produces nearly 40% of America's vegetables and two-thirds of its fruits and nuts. When the pipeline dream collapsed, farmers were left staring at dry canals, wilted fields, and forecasts of massive losses. Grocery prices are now climbing sharply, and experts warn that staples like lettuce, almonds, and tomatoes could see double-digit price jumps before year's end. And it's not just farms. High-tech industries like Arizona's semiconductor plants are also being squeezed. A single chip factory can consume up to 10 million gallons of water every day. Without reliable supply, companies are rationing, cutting shifts, and warning of production delays. The ripple runs deep, from laptops and smartphones to cars and even military equipment. In states like Michigan and Ohio, workers are starting to feel the pinch as supply chains slow down. Here's where I want to bring you in. Do you think Canada is right to hold the line on its water? Or should neighbors share more in times of crisis? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. The water fight hasn't stopped at food and factories, it's also hitting energy. Hydroelectric plants in the Pacific Northwest once relied on Canadian water during peak demand. Now, with reservoirs at record lows, utilities are turning back to coal and gas. That means higher household bills and broken promises on clean energy. Environmental groups warn this crisis could undo years of progress in America's transition to renewables. And then there's the political storm. Trump framed Canada's refusal as a betrayal, accusing Ottawa of hoarding water. But to many Americans, it looks like Trump overplayed his hand, leaving Washington humiliated. For decades, Americans assumed Canadian resources would always be there, a cushion in hard times. That illusion is gone. Border communities around the Great Lakes are especially anxious. 40 million people on both sides depend on the lakes for drinking water. Trump's hints at tearing up agreements like the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement have rattled cities like Chicago, Detroit, and Cleveland. If water politics spreads from rivers to lakes, the stakes get even higher. Wall Street has also taken notice. Agribusiness stocks are sliding, and analysts warn tech and auto could be next. Investors are treating water insecurity like a financial time bomb, pushing companies to rethink supply chains and even relocate. For ordinary families, this translates into higher costs for food, energy, cars, and electronics. It's not just a story about rivers, it's a story about everyday life becoming more expensive and less certain. The human toll is already visible. Farmhands in California, factory workers in Arizona, engineers in chip plants, they're all facing layoffs and uncertainty. Town halls are erupting with anger. Governors are demanding federal solutions, and families across the Southwest worry if their taps will keep flowing. This brings us to the core of the crisis. Trump treated water as a guarantee, a resource that could be demanded from Canada to secure American prosperity. Canada said no. Now America is staring at consequences that no speech, no tariff, and no press conference can hide. Washington is cornered. Options like new tariffs or lawsuits could drag on for years. The idea of physically diverting rivers without Ottawa's approval is fraught with risk. Meanwhile, Canada is doubling down, moving to pass national laws that put water protection above provincial politics. The faucet, as Trump described it, may be permanently shut. In the meantime, industries are scrambling for alternatives. Desalination plants, aquifer recharge projects, and recycling technologies are back on the agenda. But they come with trillion-dollar price tags and timelines that stretch decades. Until those solutions scale, factories, farms, and households remain vulnerable. Globally, the clash is reshaping alliances. Canada is already courting Europe and Asia, positioning itself as a water and agricultural power. Drought-hit nations see Ottawa as a stable supplier of food and resources, while Washington struggles with rising costs and domestic backlash. The bigger lesson? Adaptation will be the new measure of power. For the U.S., relying on dominance alone won't solve climate-driven crises. The future will belong to nations that innovate, conserve, and manage resources wisely. As we near the end, let's pause on what this means for ordinary people. If you've noticed higher grocery bills, rising electricity prices, or news of layoffs in water-dependent industries, you're already feeling the ripple effects. And as climate change accelerates, these pressures will only grow. Canada's defiance may inspire other countries to guard their resources more tightly. America, once used to having backup plans, now faces a sobering reality. There's no quick fix. By 2030, much of the U.S. West is forecasted to suffer long, punishing droughts. Without Canada's rivers, America must turn to technology and conservation, or risk economic decline. And that raises the million-dollar question. Will the U.S. shift course toward cooperation and innovation, or double down on confrontation? One thing is clear, Canada has drawn the line, and the world is watching. If you've made it this far, thank you for sticking with me through a story that affects us all in one way or another. Water may not always make the headlines like oil or politics, but as this conflict shows, it might just define the future of nations. So, if you found this breakdown valuable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you won't miss our next deep dive. And as always, thanks for watching.